How to break free from grind culture like Conan did in Conan the Barbarian. Recently, I made a recording about how grind culture is like the wheel of pain in Conan. And if you haven't watched that, I would recommend watching that first. Because today we're going to talk about not grind culture itself, but how to escape it in the manner that Conan did when he overthrew his masters, when he returned to repay his masters with his vengeance. The system doesn't fear people who work hard. It fears people who no longer depend on it. And that is essentially what Conan did. Once he was no longer dependent on the masters and carved his own path, breaking free, running out into the world, becoming his own man, that is when he became a bigger threat than ever before. He was no longer controllable. Conan effectively escaped the system by building wealth on his own terms. He did so in a variety of ways. He did turn to banditry. He did turn to, in many ways, being an outlaw. But he was free. He was totally liberated, if you want to say, from the modern sense, the corporate ladder, so to speak. He walked away from that system and found ways to build his own wealth. He refused to let institutions define how he should live. He treated freedom as the highest currency. That is why Conan represents something so powerful. He is his own agent. He's not an agent of any government, corporation, organization. Certainly no longer an agent of Thulsa Doom and the masters which ruled over him. He broke free and he became his own agent, and that is why he found wealth in his own ways. He was his own sovereign actor in a world with people who were subjected to the rule of elites. Conan went on his own adventure. He became his own hero. So the first step of breaking free from that grind culture, from the matrix, is to realize that you are your own hero of your own story, that you must define your own terms of living, that you must be your own agent and totally free. That is a first step mental accomplishment that one must achieve. And a great example of somebody who did achieve this in real life, whether you think he was a good or bad human, was John McAfee, who built his wealth through his programs and antivirus software. But even bigger than that was the way he lived life, totally independent, totally in such a lawless manner that he was sought after by many people, just like Conan was. But he, in exchange, gained much freedom through his philosophy of living. He was off the grid. He was always on the run. He was always finding new ways to make wealth, to gain freedom. So John McAfee, in that sense, is a great example of a real-life modern Conan the Barbarian. Whether you like or hate the man, it's simply a good analogy. Now, one must understand that this battlefield is based on dependency. So the less you need permission, the freer you become, like John McAfee. He didn't need anyone's permission. He had the wealth to decide what he wanted to do on a whim. He traveled internationally, he made many places his home, and he had his own tribe. Conan formed his own tribe. He would not have been successful without a tribe, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. Back to dependency. Every dependency is a lever someone else can pull. It's a chain to be jerked. When you give someone power over you, you are psychologically and physically obstructed, restricted from doing as you please. So getting rid of those layers of dependency, whether that looks like having to pay rent or having to pay certain bills, being able to obtain what you need on your own terms, independently from those dependent constraints, is very important. So in essence, that looks like building a life where your choices are not dictated by fear. And fear can be something that is inhibiting to many people. If they make a life-changing decision, fear will try to stop them. And that is a big obstacle. See, we are mostly confined in the cage of the mind by the masters of the modern grind culture, the modern matrix. They hold people back through the fear of independence because they are hopelessly dependent on the system to survive. Overcoming that fear the way Conan did, shedding the fear, is essential. Now, one must question every assumption, first and foremost as well, about what they're told is considered a goal of life, whether that looks like work, ethic, success, and status. You must question what you are told, like Conan did. You have to design your life instead of inheriting the status of a slave and continuing on that path. On the topic of a tribe, Conan would not have been free without his tribe, without Subotai or Valeria or his other companions. Conan did everything with his group. He returned to destroy Thulsa Doom's lair with his tribe. His tribe and him lived on their own terms, totally free, building their own wealth, creating their own rules, not being beholden to anyone. And so it is important to create an environment that does not pull you back into conformity, and that requires a tribe, that requires other people, a party, so to speak, like in Dungeons and Dragons, a party that works with you, pushes you towards freedom. So you must find people who build, create, question, and take ownership of their lives just like you, just like Conan, when they set on their adventures, when they went after the empire of Thulsa Doom, when they obtained wealth on their own terms and glory and prestige and power and strength. They did it on their own terms, not on the terms of dependence of the system. A tribe reminds you that you're not crazy for wanting to be different. Your tribe is there to help you to realize that freedom is the goal rather than dependency. So having those people in your life is going to be very important. You need a Valeria or a Subotai by your side to encourage you, to help each other gain opportunities and to form resilience. A community is the answer. You cannot do this alone unless you're ready to go the path of the hermit. Being a hermit is not for everyone. In this case, I recommend forming a tribe. In the sense of McAfee, he had his own tribe. He had his close confidants, people that journeyed with him. He prioritized self-reliance. They prioritize experience over possessions. And so in many ways, to escape grind culture, one must learn to be a bit radical. You have to want to defeat the system the way Conan did. You have to want to not only escape its clutches, but in an essence, destroy what it stands for the way Conan did and return to essentially undo the power it had over him. In many ways, that's what I'm doing with these recordings. I'm trying to tear down the system by teaching you, by informing you, so that you can help other people become independent, not be dependent on the system, to think differently, to think for yourself. It's a domino effect, and the more of us work together and escape and disconnect from that system, eventually the system itself will not be able to support itself. It will lose slaves. It will lose control over people's thinking. So this is how we destroy Thulsa Doom. This is how we work together as a digital tribe online, because it's not just physical, it's digital. We have to stop outsourcing our thinking. We have to stop measuring ourselves by titles and salaries and statuses and all that meaningless bullshit that is designed to keep us all under the thumb of elite overlords. Stop chasing validation from systems that benefit from your obedience. This is where we have to build enough capability in our lives, directed by our own values on our own terms. And we may not be ready for that financially, we may not be ready for that spiritually or mentally, but sometimes we need to go on that hero's journey and listen to our soul, listen to our heart, and make that escape, make that decision to unplug, to not be dependent on the masters, on the overlords, to become the masters of our own destiny. Conan became free on his own term. No one gave him permission. He became free because he rejected the authority of Thulsa Doom and his masters. He stayed free because he had a tribe, because he was fiercely independent. He valued freedom, he valued strength, steel, skill. He valued his allies, and all together they defended their freedom. You have to protect it. And in essence, this is the idea of what the Second Amendment stands for too, the right to bear arms. You cannot protect your freedom without the ability to fight, to bear arms. And Conan believed in that. In essence, and in closing, Conan escaped the grind culture and his masters by finding his tribe. And he returned as a man who could no longer be controlled. Certainly not by Thulsa Doom. And Thulsa Doom tried hard to slither his way into the mind of Conan. But Conan ultimately rejected Thulsa Doom's control system and tried to destroy it. That's the real path to liberation. You don't just become stronger, you need to become surrounded by people who make freedom the standard, and ultimately you have to reject the system's grip. Its grip weakens every time you gain a skill, you form your own path, gain your own independence, and build relationships with people who refuse to live by someone else's script. This is your story, this is your journey, this is your path. You decide it. So this is how to break free from the grind culture like Conan.